I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. And what I wrote down is average is an average. I was watching a Theo video. If you don't know Theo, he's a tech YouTuber. Does a lot of news commentary on developer stuff, state of development, tech in general, more so on the building side of things. And I'll link that video in the description. It's like an hour long, so if you don't got the attention for it, span for it, then we got bigger issues. But the main point is average is an average. And this is something that I always understand and grasp and kind of have unbiased myself from this. But it's always interesting because the most important way that you need to unbias yourself from it is one of the hardest ways to, which is putting yourself on that scale. You don't really know how good you are at something unless you're at the top or at the bottom. But if you're anywhere in the middle, you don't really have a good gauge of where you are in between the bottom and the top relatively. You don't know where average is more accurate of a statement. And in the context of the video, what he was saying is speaking to developers that are just programmers, CS majors, software devs that are graduating right now in the AI era, and talking about the difference when he graduated versus like when I graduated versus now graduating, and the idea that at a certain point in time, Google, Amazon, Facebook were just buying up the best engineers, keeping them, some of them not even really working for real, but just to keep them out of the hands of the competition. And now that's not the case. So because of that, the quality has gone up in developers, and we have junior devs that have to compete with way more competent developers. And back then it was more like we need people to work. There's not as many high quality options, or it would take us longer to find high quality options, so we get the best that we can get. And in that, thinking about going through interviews and things like that, and trying to gauge how good the talent is in the interviews of the people that you're interviewing prospectively to work at the company that you're interviewing for as the interviewee. No, the interviewer, sorry. But the interesting thing is, if you don't have great people around you, competent people around you, you're judging the interviewee based on the people that already work there. So average shifts everywhere, and no matter where you are. You could be a really terrible dev, but if they're all below average there, then to them, you're average. And that was his gist. And he said a lot of other insightful things that don't necessarily exactly have to apply to the tech world and dev world in general, but it was a good explanation on average is an average, and kind of walking through how do people actually get jobs, and how do people actually become successful in whatever realm. But of course, he's going to lean more towards the tech side of things because that's the realm that he's in. And those are the things that I understand and I have picked up on. And I share some of those values with. Again, it is always hard to say I'm above average and know it. I feel like I'm above average at a lot of things. Is that true? I really can't know for a lot of the things because I'm not immersed enough in that realm, that domain to accurately assess that. It'll be different if I had, for instance, there's an interview where Shaq's talking about Adam Sandler playing basketball, and Shaq's like, bro, Adam Sandler's good at basketball. Like, Adam Sandler's good at basketball, and this is an NBA player saying that Adam Sandler's good at basketball, and he could go pretty much cook up at any LA Fitness. So, hearing that from somebody that has been in the NBA and that plays basketball professionally and is pretty damn good at basketball, that is Adam Sandler knowing that, yeah, he's above average, definitely. Doing that for yourself is hard unless you have someone that's already vetted, someone that's already stamped as competent and well above average in a higher percentile that allows you to get a better gauge of that. But if you don't have that, then you're kind of in no man's land. Like I said, I think I'm above average at a lot of things. And I could be horrendously incorrect, but I feel that way because of my perceived competence. And I try to not be biased in that ignorance. And I really try to not claim to be above average at a lot of things unless I truly feel that way. But I also really have to gauge the fact that, think about the most, and this is stealing from Theo, think about the most average intelligence person that you know, like just average, average, average. It's just, if there was an intelligence test, they would, like, a real one that covered a true all around intelligence, they would get 100 on that IQ every single time. If you tested them 500 times, they would get 100 on it. 100 is average for IQ, or supposed to be. Now, that person, half of the other people are dumber than that person. So just thinking about, we have law of averages. We have like 8 billion people on Earth. Split in half. The median, 4 billionth person. That person is the most average intelligence, or average in whatever domain you want to say. And then there's 4 billion people that are below that threshold. And that's a big scale, and that's hard to think about in terms of, like, oh, out of 4 billion people, then what makes you think you're above average out of 4 billion people? But that's a hyperbolized example. Let's say, for instance, my programming ability. I know I'm no savant in programming, but I have a computer science degree. And I also know how a computer works. And I also know how programming languages work. And I also know that all I have to do is just learn the syntax of a new language and I can program. I know that I'm above average programmer because I know what it takes to be a programmer. Now, how far above average? I couldn't tell you, but I know the average programmer can't do a lot of the stuff that I can do and do competently, confidently, with composure, and be able to teach it. Even more so, speaking and attesting for the fact that I'm above average. Basketball, probably above average because average is not good if you're thinking about totality. Of course, we watch sports, so we think, oh, NBA. But then you drop down to even college and you're like, Then you drop down to high school and you're like, So at basketball, even basketball is something that I'm not fantastic at. I'm above average because if you see that average, what is real average? Now, if we're talking about the average of the people that know and have competed competitively in basketball, or am I above the average? I'm not really sure because I can't really gauge what that actual median is. But in terms of the totality of everybody that's played basketball, I'm above average, and that's how I would define. If I'm saying I'm above average at basketball, it's everybody that's played basketball for real, not like just dribble the ball or something. Like if you play basketball, it doesn't have to be competitive, like on a team or whatever. I think I'm above average. All this to say, one thing I like to do is when I'm asking somebody to rate something, what I'll do is 1 to 7. How good was it on a scale of 1 to 7? They'd be like, oh, everybody always look at me like, what? 1 to 7? It's like, people don't be asking 1 to 7. They'd be like 1 to 10. And the weirdest thing to me, and it's always been weird ever since like the rate me days back on Instagram, is why the hell did a 5 shift by 2 points to where 7 is average? 7 is above average and a good amount above average. So if anybody got a legit 7, I wouldn't be mad about it. But because it shifted, because 7 is like, trying to be nice and da 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 da, you're not a 10, you know what I mean? So really, with the shift to the left, the 0 shift to the left, boom, boom, and now 2 is 0. And so now 7 is average. So now we look at 12. So the scale that we're saying is 1 to 10 is actually 2 to 12. So when you're a 7 out of 12, it makes more sense. But it just got so colloquialized that 7 is average. And that always blew my mind, even when I really didn't understand fully or could grasp fully the concept of average is an average. It really blows my mind. And it's funny because it's another testament to the mass human nature, I guess, would probably be the best way of no, yeah, the mass human nature can't gauge or accept that 5 is average. By definition, 5 is average. On a scale of 1 to 10, 5 is average. So a 7 would be well above average, competent in the, quite literally, 70th percentile. And the fact, just that as a fact, even the 5 scale, I can't really trust the 5 scale either because it's so normalized that people don't even take it serious. So I just throw random scales out on a scale to 1 to 3. Just give me any number you want. Because then it really makes them think like, okay, really gauge the actual scale that you're working in, and it throws them off and makes them actually think. Oh, 2.1. 2.1 out of 3. That's pretty close to average. Pretty darn close to average. Gotcha. You was with me. Out of 3, 1, 2, 3. You're saying 2 would be the average. No. No, 1.5 would be the average. 1, 2, 3, 1.5 is the average. Right? And that's where things just get discombobulated because it's like the wait, no, wait, and that one makes more sense in terms of how it's displayed because you're thinking about the average is just the middle of the one and the 3, and it's just the one number in between. No, the average is actually shifted over more a little bit because it's 3. Staying with me. I don't know. Maybe I'm not making sense. If I'm not making sense, tell me I'm tripping. Tell me I'm tripping. But this is also off a whim. So if I'm wrong, or if I'm not making sense, please let me know. But I think I'm making sense. At the end of the day, average is not average, and people don't know how to gauge average. So I would challenge you to go find some averages, actually gauged averages. What is average good looks from your perspective? And why do you think that is? And then go try to find the ugliest person you can find and be like, all right, is that still your average? Or go find the most beautiful person that you can find. It's like, all right, is that still my average? I don't know, man. It's just one of those things for me. Average is not average, and it blows my mind because we can call it an average, and that's why in data science sometimes they don't even like using average because it is a manipulator, or it can be a manipulator because of how people perceive what average means in multiple different ways, not just the median versus average conversation to where what's the average salary in any given state. Well, average is a manipulation because there's really, 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 really high salaries. So in data science, that's kind of manipulating the data and not fully representative of what you're actually trying to ask with that question. Now, on a scale, it has nothing to do with the aggregating of, go up to 10, divide, and then we're good. No, that's not how it works. It's just because it's in the exact middle. I don't know, man. You got nothing else?